There is a kind of thinking that does not lead anywhere. It circles. It repeats. It takes the same problem and turns it over and over, examining it from every angle, finding new worries in places you had not thought to look. And you tell yourself you are being thorough, that you are being careful, that if you just think about it enough, you will find the answer, the solution, the way forward. But the answer never comes. Or if it does, it is immediately followed by another question, another doubt, another reason to keep thinking. And so you continue, not because it is helping, but because stopping feels more frightening than continuing. Because as long as you are thinking, you feel like you are doing something, like you have some control, but you do not. The thinking is controlling you. Welcome to the quiet path. This is a space where we step away from the noise of our own minds, where we sit with what is uncomfortable, where we remember that clarity comes not from more thinking, but from less. Here, we do not chase solutions or try to figure everything out. We simply look honestly at what is happening within us and ask whether it is serving us or trapping us. And today, we are looking at something that most people experience but few understand. Something that masquerades as wisdom but is actually its opposite. We are looking at overthinking. And what it truly is beneath all the mental activity, it is fear. You know this pattern. Something happens or something might happen, and your mind latches onto it. It begins to spin scenarios. What if this goes wrong? What if they think that about me? What if I make the wrong choice? And each question leads to another. Each scenario branches into more possibilities, and soon you are not thinking about what is actually in front of you. You are thinking about shadows, projections, stories your mind is creating about things that have not happened and may never happen. But they feel real, they feel urgent. And so you keep thinking, trying to prepare for every possibility, trying to protect yourself from every potential pain. But this is not preparation, it is paralysis. The mind believes it is helping. It believes that if it can just think through every angle, anticipate every problem, consider every consequence, then you will be safe. Then nothing bad will happen. But this is an illusion. Life cannot be controlled through thought. It cannot be made predictable or safe by imagining every possible outcome. And the attempt to do so only exhausts you. It keeps you locked in your head, disconnected from what is actually happening. Unable to respond to reality because you are too busy responding to the stories you are telling yourself about reality. There is a teaching in the old traditions about the nature of the mind. It is compared to a restless monkey, always jumping from branch to branch, never settling, never still. And this restlessness is not a flaw, it is simply what the untrained mind does. It seeks, it worries. It tries to protect you by thinking through dangers. But when this becomes constant, when every moment is filled with mental chatter about what could go wrong, the mind is no longer serving you. It has become a prison. And you are so accustomed to living in this prison that you no longer recognize it as one. Overthinking is not the same as careful consideration. Careful consideration has a direction. It examines a situation, weighs options, and then makes a choice. It has a beginning and an end. Overthinking has no end. It is circular, repetitive. It revisits the same thoughts again and again, not because there is new information, but because there is fear underneath. Fear that you will make the wrong choice, fear that something bad will happen, fear that you are not capable of handling what comes. And so the mind keeps thinking, keeps spinning, because stopping would mean facing that fear directly. And that feels more dangerous than the exhausting loop of thought. Most people do not realize they are afraid. They think they are being rational, analytical, responsible. They think their constant thinking is a sign of intelligence or care. But if you look beneath the surface, you will see what is really happening. You will see that the thinking is not about finding answers, it is about avoiding action. It is about staying in the realm of possibility instead of stepping into the realm of reality. Because in possibility, you are safe. You have not failed yet. You have not been rejected. You have not made a mistake. But you also have not lived. You have not acted. You have not moved forward. You are frozen. And the thinking is what keeps you frozen. Consider how much time you spend replaying conversations, analyzing what someone said, what they meant, what you should have said, what you will say next time. And notice how this never brings resolution. It only creates more questions, more worry, more doubt. Because the thinking is not about understanding the conversation. It is about managing your fear of how you are perceived, your fear that you said something wrong, your fear that you are not liked or respected or valued. And so you think and think, trying to fix something that cannot be fixed through thought, trying to control something that is already done, and in the process, you miss the next conversation, the next moment, the next opportunity to simply be present. Or consider how you approach decisions, even small ones. You weigh the options endlessly. You imagine every possible outcome. You seek more information, more opinions, more time. Not because the decision is complex, but because you are afraid of making the wrong choice, afraid of regret, afraid of consequence. And so you delay. You think more, you wait for certainty. But certainty does not come. It never does. And meanwhile, the decision remains unmade. The opportunity passes. Or the choice is eventually made, not from clarity but from exhaustion. From being so tired of thinking that you finally just pick something. And this is no way to live. This is no way to move through the world. The ancient philosophers understood something important. They understood that wisdom is not about thinking more. It is about seeing clearly. And you cannot see clearly when your mind is cluttered with endless thought. It is like trying to see your reflection in water that is constantly being stirred. The image is distorted, fragmented, unclear. But when the water is still, when nothing is disturbing it, you can see perfectly. Your mind is the same. When it is quiet, when it is not spinning with overthinking, clarity emerges naturally. You know what to do, not because you have thought it through from every angle, but because you are present enough to see what is actually needed. Overthinking is also a way of avoiding feeling when something painful happens. When you experience loss or disappointment or hurt, the immediate impulse is often to think about it, to analyze why it happened, to figure out what you could have done differently, to understand it. But this thinking is often a defense, a way of staying in your head so you do not have to be in your heart. Because thinking about pain is more comfortable than feeling it. Thinking keeps you at a distance. It gives you the illusion of control. But it also keeps you stuck. Because pain that is not felt does not go away. It just gets buried beneath layers of thought. And it continues to affect you in ways you do not understand. There is a difference between processing something and overthinking it. Processing means you allow yourself to feel what is there. You sit with the discomfort. You let it move through you. And then it releases. Overthinking means you circle around the feeling without ever actually touching it. You think about why you feel this way. You think about whether you should feel this way. You think about what it means and what you should do about it. But you never just let yourself feel it. And so it remains, unresolved, waiting beneath all the thinking. When you begin to notice your overthinking, when you start to see it for what it is, you might feel discouraged. You might think there is something wrong with you, that you should be able to stop it, that other people do not struggle with this the way you do. But this is not true. Almost everyone overthinks. Some just hide it better. And the goal is not to stop thinking altogether. The goal is to recognize when thinking has become unhelpful, when it has crossed the line from useful consideration into fearful spinning. And when you can recognize this, you can make a different choice. The choice is not to think harder, it is to stop thinking, to interrupt the pattern, to bring yourself back to what is real, what is happening right now, not what might happen, not what happened yesterday, but this moment. And in this moment, what is actually needed, not what your mind says is needed, not what you fear might be needed tomorrow, but right now. What can you do? What can you feel? What is actually here? And when you ground yourself in this way, when you return to the present instead of staying lost in thought, something shifts. The fear loses its grip, the thinking slows. And you remember that you are capable, that you do not need to have everything figured out, that you can handle things as they come. This takes practice. The pattern of overthinking is deep. It has been reinforced for years. And it will not disappear just because you decide it should. But each time you notice it, each time you choose to step out of the mental loop and return to the present, you are training your mind. You are teaching it that there is another way, that you do not have to be controlled by thought, that you can think when thinking is useful and be still when thinking is not. And over time, this becomes easier. The gaps between thoughts become longer. The clarity becomes more accessible. and the fear that was driving all the thinking begins to dissolve. You might be wondering what to do when the thoughts come, when your mind starts spinning and you cannot seem to stop it. And the answer is simple but not easy. You do not fight it. You do not try to force the thoughts away, you simply observe them. You notice that you are thinking. You notice what you are thinking about. And you remind yourself that these are just thoughts. They are not facts. They are not reality. They are your mind doing what it does. And you do not have to believe them. You do not have to follow them. You can let them be there and choose to place your attention elsewhere. On your breath, on your body, on what is in front of you. And when the thoughts pull you back, which they will, you simply notice again and return again. And this is the practice. There is a freedom that comes when you are no longer controlled by your thinking. When you can have a thought without being swept away by it. When you can notice worry arising without becoming worried. When you can see your mind spinning stories without believing every word. This freedom is not about having a perfect mind, it is about having a different relationship with your mind. About recognizing that you are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that notices the thoughts. And from that place of awareness, you have choice. You can engage with thoughts that are helpful and release thoughts that are not. You can think when thinking serves you and rest when it does not. Most people spend their entire lives identified with their thoughts. They believe that what they think is who they are. And so when anxious thoughts arise, they become anxious. When worried thoughts arise, they become worried. When fearful thoughts arise, they become afraid. But this is not necessary. The thoughts are just mental events. They come and go. And you can learn to watch them come and go without being moved by them, without letting them dictate your state of being. This is not detachment. It is not coldness. It is clarity. It is seeing things as they are instead of being lost in the stories your mind tells about them. When you stop overthinking, when you step out of the endless mental loops, you discover something surprising. Most of what you were worrying about does not matter. Most of the scenarios you were imagining will never happen. Most of the problems you were trying to solve were not real problems. They were just fears projected into the future. And by releasing them, by refusing to feed them with more thought, you create space. Space for what is real. Space for what is present. Space for life to unfold without your constant mental interference. This does not mean you become careless. It does not mean you stop planning or considering consequences. It means you do these things from a place of clarity rather than fear. You think about the future when it is useful to do so. You plan when planning is needed, but you do not dwell. You do not spiral. You do not let thinking become a compulsion that drains your energy and keeps you paralyzed. You think, and then you act. You consider, and then you decide. You feel, and then you move forward. And this is how you reclaim your life from the tyranny of overthinking. The irony is that when you stop trying to think your way to certainty, when you stop trying to figure everything out before you act, you actually become more effective. You make better decisions because they come from clarity instead of fear. You solve problems more easily because you are responding to what is actually there instead of what you imagine might be there. You connect more deeply with people because you are present with them instead of lost in your head. And you experience more peace because you are not constantly at war with your own thoughts. There is a quietness that exists beneath all the thinking, a stillness that is always there, always accessible if you are willing to stop and notice it. This is not something you create, it is something you discover. And you discover it by letting go, by releasing the need to think everything through, by trusting that you do not need to have all the answers, by accepting that uncertainty is part of life and no amount of thinking will eliminate it. And when you can do this, when you can rest in not knowing, you find a peace that overthinking could never provide. Because this peace does not depend on having everything figured out. It depends on being present with what is. And what is right now is always manageable. It is only when you add all the thoughts about what might be that it becomes overwhelming. So notice when the thinking starts. Notice when your mind begins to spin. And instead of following it, instead of believing you need to figure it out right now, simply breathe. Feel your body. Look around you. Come back to this moment. And ask yourself what is actually needed here. Not what might be needed tomorrow or next week, but here, now. And you will find that the answer is usually simpler than all the thinking suggested. You will find that you already know what to do. Not because you have thought it through from every angle, but because when you are present, when you are clear, wisdom is available to you. And this wisdom is far more reliable than the fearful projections of an overthinking mind. If you found something here that speaks to your experience, I invite you to like this video and subscribe to The Quiet Path. Not because you need more content to consume, but because this space exists for those who are ready to step out of the constant mental noise and remember what it feels like to be still, to be present, to be free from the endless thinking that has been running your life. This is about returning to simplicity, to clarity, to the quiet knowing that exists beneath all the noise. And perhaps what helped you today will help someone else tomorrow who needs to hear these words. Walk slowly, see clearly. I'll see you again on The Quiet Path.